Baltz, one of the career coaches here. And yeah, thank you all for being here. The objective is to define and or enhance your professional brand to reflect what you want other people to know about you. So your professional brand is how you present yourself to employers, to your peers, and via online or social channels as well. And like it or not, you already have a professional brand. You can't stop people from making judgments about you. And hopefully they are largely positive judgments. And by being mindful about how you present your brand to an audience, you can help others form the impression of you that you want them to have. So again, your professional brand is how you present yourself to your employers, your peers, and online or through social channels. So your professional versus your personal brand. There might be some overlap in your professional and personal brand. Some people are much more comfortable sharing more about themselves in their professional life, and others prefer to keep the two a bit more separate. Either is going to be fine. It's about what you are most confident and comfortable with. Remember, though, that anything that exists online about you, whether you're trying to keep it private or not, can impact how others see you. So be mindful when posting on social media or LinkedIn about whether this is something you'd feel good about a prospective employer seeing. And professional branding isn't about creating a new you or putting up a facade or being inauthentic. On the contrary, it's really about tapping into the aspects of your identity that are most core to who you are as a person. So what makes you you, and finding ways to share key aspects with a professional audience. So what makes up a professional brand? Your skills, your interest, and your values are all things that tie into your brand. And we'll get more into these when we go through the worksheet, and also why they're important to highlight. So these are some examples where others might see your brand. Anywhere from your professional artifacts when you apply to jobs, if you have a blog or social media, in your interviews or networking, and even in Google searches. So if you haven't yet, Google yourself. It can be incredibly enlightening. Before I started building my professional brand, anytime I put in my name, a famous politician came up. Not that we have the same name, but we shared the same last name for a while. And so just like really Google yourself to see what's coming up and make sure that you're curating what's coming up in Google searches for you so that you're really branding yourself and showcasing what you bring to the table. So the goal here is to build a brand identity that speaks for itself. So here you can see some popular examples of brand identities that do speak for themselves. Others are going to develop an impression of you when they meet you, and you can curate what they remember you for. So brands like these with near universal recognition, like Nike, Apple, and Mercedes, they don't rely solely on their products to build their reputation. They invest in curating a strong brand identity. You don't need to spend millions, though, on marketing to do the same for yourself. But like these brands, you can curate a professional brand that is immediately recognizable and will prompt people to think of all the things that you want them to. So creating brand associations means being consistent, whether that's through your usernames across different platforms, the profile picture that you use in different arenas, the colors and fonts that you use on your portfolio and your resume and cover letter, tone and writing style, and then the topics that you talk about. So whether that's tech or if you like gardening or whatever, making sure your topics are consistent across your different brand identities. So step one is to really embrace your story. Really know what your story is, where you came from, who you are, what makes you unique, and what do you bring to the table. Again, we'll talk more about this within the branding sheet that we're going to go through later, but step one is really embracing your story. Step two is identifying your values. And why do values matter? It's because they set you apart. They make you relatable to people. It answers your why. So why are you doing the things that you do? And it provides structure to you as a candidate. I also really believe that it helps you identify what kinds of companies you want to work for, because if you're not fulfilling at least one of your core values, it's probably not going to be as fulfilling as a work experience. And so with identifying your values, we'll use the list in the professional branding exercise, and I want you to go through and again, we'll do this in a little bit, but bold the values that stand out to you or are ones that you really hold true to who you are. And then kind of, it's easy to see them and be like, well, I value all of these things. So really pick the 10 that are most important to you and that really provide insight and impact into your life. And then reflect on what helped shape these values for you. Why do you hold these values above others? How do you live these values in your day-to-day life? And which of your values, if any, are more or less negotiable than others? So which need to be present for you to be fulfilled in your career? And then the last step, step 3, is to recognize your strengths. So a couple of ways to do this are to take a strengths-based assessment. So there's the high 5 test or the VIA character strength survey. There are some other ones out there as well, but these are both good ones that are, I believe, free, unless I changed it. But these are really good examples to help you kind of figure out what your strengths might be. And then to reflect on those strengths. So did any surprise you? Are any missing that you expected to see? And if so, what adjectives do you want a potential employer or someone in your network to use to describe you when talking about your skills? And then I guess this is really the last piece. Step 4 is crafting your narrative. So really thinking about all of these different pieces. So your story, your skills, your values, and your interest, and then crafting that narrative and creating your pitch. So do you have an elevator pitch? Is it something that you feel confident and comfortable sharing with new connections? Is it strong for you that it showcases the backbone of your brand? So it's how you introduce yourself both online and in person. So creating this elevator pitch is extremely important because you're not only going to use it in networking experiences, but you're also going to use it in interviews as well. Most interviews start with "tell me about yourself," and this is a great opportunity to share your pitch in that answer. And so for creating a pitch, you kind of want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do, maybe a little bit about why you're different and what you want, and then your call to action. So what can you help people with? And really think about these things to hone in on them, because you can use it in your LinkedIn summary, you can use it on your portfolio, your blog, your social media, your GitHub. So you can use it in all of these different places in addition to when you're talking to people. And then with all of that, you want to polish your presence. So go through the online cleanup activity that we'll provide and remove content that you don't want others to see. So is it not working for your professional brand? Is it something that you may have said years ago that you're like, oh, that probably wasn't the best thing to say, and you don't want a prospective employer to see that? Like, go through and curate your content. Edit existing content to align with your brand. Again, use the same photos or very similar photos for all of your different accounts so people can easily find you. You can even have fun with colors and images and other visual connectors to kind of connect all of your different pieces together. And then set brand maintenance goals. So it's not enough to just create your professional brand. You have to think about how you're going to curate it and keep up with it. And so for the sprint assignment, which we're going to spend the rest of the time working on this, you'll complete the professional branding worksheet, which will include your draft pitch, incorporating any combination of your story, your strengths, and your values, and then complete your personal marketing plan, which is also included in the worksheet. So I'm going to switch over to the branding worksheet, and everyone should have access to this now. It's in the thread, and I see there's a question, so I'm going to get to that as well. And so right now, going along with the online cleanup, well, if you, Michael Phelps, yes, so what other terms do potential employers look at? Location. They look at location, they look at industry. So if you put in Michael Phelps tech, that's going to bring up different results than Michael Phelps swimmer, or just Michael Phelps. It's probably going to bring up the swimmer, let's be honest. So making sure that you do have other things to differentiate yourself if you do have a more common name that other people might associate with different people. But you can certainly still curate that and then link to your other profiles from your other profiles. So like on LinkedIn, link to your portfolio, link to your Twitter if you're using that for professional means. And then that way people know exactly which accounts are yours and don't have to guess. Yeah, thank you for that question. That's definitely an important one. Yeah, and if there are any other questions, definitely drop them in the thread. But for now, we'll start going through this professional branding worksheet. Again, I know group work can kind of be interesting sometimes when you're working through these sorts of things, but it's a great start to begin your homework assignment. And this really will help you throughout your job search experience. And it looks like we have a few more comments. So tech just brings up Michael Phelps's line of tech swimsuits. Yeah, so you will have to you'll have to add in, like, work with some SEO as you're going through your different oh my gosh, my brain, different social media things. So like on LinkedIn, really making sure that you're using the same keywords on LinkedIn and on your portfolio and other places so that you have ways to get through that. What if you have a doppelganger that is established in your field with your same name? That happens a lot too. So again, it's making sure that you are creating that consistent brand with your pictures the same, with your content being the same. And then that way, when you are reaching out to employers and they're looking at your artifacts, it's easy to figure out that you are a different person from the other one. So even if you do share the same name in the same field, there are definitely ways to make sure that the recruiter or the hiring manager is getting the correct person and the correct information. Do you think even our Facebook accounts and LinkedIn accounts should sync with profile image or story? No, so it's really up to you what social media you want to use. So LinkedIn is definitely the professional one. Some people might use Twitter for professional and personal. That's the one I see more often being linked in terms of profile picture and everything like that. Facebook, Instagram, things that nature typically tend to be more personal, and so you don't need to, especially if you're trying to not associate them with your professional identity, you might want to not create that brand across those accounts. So it really depends on you and your goals, whether or not you want to sync across those as well. Can you speak to what impact being vocal about social issues given the current political climate has on professional branding? So there are some issues out there that, yes, will have an impact. So political things, like whether you're posting about Republicans or Democrats, like some people might find that antagonistic, or if it's something very, like a very hot button issue. However, there are some things like human rights and human rights, that if it's important to you, and there might be some people who do take that antagonistically, but the question that I always ask in that situation is this something I value, that's important to me, that I believe in? And if someone does take it a bad way or like judges me for my voice, do I want to work for them anyway? As long as you're not hurting somebody else or saying something cruel and offensive, I would say do what feels right to you, and what you believe in and what you care about. Again, as long as it's not hurting somebody else, I think it says way more about the person than you if they are to judge you for that, for being vocal about social issues. And let me know if that didn't quite answer your question, or if you'd like me to elaborate more. Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a great question, and definitely something we're seeing a lot right now. And yeah, for me personally, I'm going to post about social issues and things like that because I think they're important and I think they're meaningful. And if a company doesn't want to hire me because of that, then it's not a company I want to work for. All right, so I'll keep an eye on the questions thread, but if we can get started on part 1 for embracing your story. So take 5 minutes here. You'll probably need longer to really deep dive into this, but we're going to take 5 minutes to deep dive or start answering these questions here. So when did you decide to pursue a career in tech? Why did you decide to pursue a career in tech? What were you doing before? And what was the turning point in your life that made you decide to pursue this field? Particularly in interviews, when they say, tell me about yourself, This is what they're asking for. They want to hear where you were before, what got you to make your career change, what made that inspiration for you. And yeah, that's just kind of how you want to think about. You're telling me about yourself and answering these different questions. So again, we'll take until 25 after for you all to just take a few minutes to work on this. And feel free again to ask any questions that you might have. Sorry, I should have said this before, and I'm sure you all probably figured it out. But if you you can create make a copy of this so that you can edit it on your end. Sorry about that. All right, so I know 5 minutes is not enough time to really deep dive into this, but hopefully you were able to get a head start on your homework assignment. Would anyone be interested in sharing their story or how they feel about this exercise right now? Well, I can share mine. So just as an example of how you can use this story once you've fully formulated it, Yeah, so these are definitely hard questions to answer, and that's why we try to have you do it early on in the process, because when you're asked on the spot in an interview or a networking situation, it's probably not going to come across as a coherent story. At least it wouldn't for me. When people ask me questions on the spot, like I can't answer them. Like, tell me about a time you had to collaborate with others. I do that daily, but I'm not going to be able to come up with a good story off the top of my head. So that's why we have you practice these. But once you've formulated your story and kind of talked about it, mine's probably a little bit longer than anyone needs. I just got excited writing about it. But essentially, this is kind of like my career story. So where I started and where I came from. So I started off in book publishing, but realized that it essentially wasn't fulfilling my value of helping other people. And so I had to figure out something else. And that's how I discovered career coaching. So really did a lot of informational interviews, really talking to people about what the day-to-day work actually looked like, whether it was going to be fulfilling my values like I thought it would, utilizing my skills and interest in editing and writing. So that's kind of how like I ended up where I am today. And so formulating that into a story for my LinkedIn. For interviews, it's a little bit shorter. It's not quite as tedious, but it's just as an example of how to tell your story in an interesting, I like to think, way. Um, that's kind of what you take from this embrace your story section, is answering these questions and then formulating them into that story. And then, so this part we won't work on right now, but kind of digging deeper into these specific questions as well. Um, and then zooming back out. So like, why is a tech career important to you, based on your previous career? Like, what made you want to transition into this? So those are questions for homework time. And now we're going to take probably just 2 minutes here, 3 minutes. We'll do 30 after, to identify your values. So really go through these. And the reason we have the examples here is because values can be really hard to put words to. Like, you know what you believe in and what you value and what's important to you, but sometimes it doesn't come naturally to just like say them out loud. And so take the next couple of minutes to think about the top 10 for you. So like, what are the top 10 important things for you in a career and just your personal life as well? All right. So again, I know 2 minutes is probably not enough time to really think about what you value most in your life, but definitely getting a start on it. Would anyone be interested in sharing maybe their top value, and why it's important to them?
I can share mine.
Yeah, please do.
Acceptance is the one I chose.
Great.
And The reason why is because if you're in any job or anything like that and you don't have an acceptance or what you're doing or what you're coding or developing, then what's the point of working there?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
I mean, I can go. I had diversity, and when that one just I think a variety of inputs in a career sense, a variety of inputs from a variety of people is important, and just in a personal sense, I think it's just valuable to me to interact with as many people that are different from me and in as many ways as possible, and grow myself that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, Anyone else?
I'll give my top three.
Okay.
And those are the three that stand above everything else for me.
Awesome. That's great. All right. Well, we'll move down then. So for part of your homework assignment, you'll reflect on these values and think about like why you hold these values above others. And again, really think about what's negotiable and what might not be negotiable. When I was assessing different career paths, so when I realized that book publishing was not the right choice for me because it wasn't fulfilling my values of wanting to help other people, I really took a deep dive into my skills, my interests, and my values, and came up with this idea that has now, I've discovered there are theories around it too, but like if you find something that hits at least one thing in each of those buckets, so if you hit something that you're skilled at, something that interests you, and something that's a value, it's probably going to be, maybe it won't be your dream career, but it'll be a good fit. It'll be a good first step. And so I do think this assignment is really impactful in making sure that you're making a good decision for yourself and coming up with like what type of company and what type of role you want to be working in. And so then the last piece here is to recognize your strengths. So I think what we'll do here is pick one of these assessments. So there's 3 different options there, and just go through the assessments, and we'll come back to it afterwards. And I'm going to open one to see how long they take, because if they're super long, we might not be able to do that. Okay, so it's 15 to 20 minutes. So I lied. We're not going to do that right now, but we will take 3 minutes here to think about, for you, what you think your top strengths are, and then for your homework assignment, you can take an assessment to see how that lines up with what you thought about yourself. So we'll, again, take a couple minutes here, just think about what do you believe are your strengths. All right, so hopefully everyone had a couple of minutes to at least think of a few strengths. Would anyone be interested in sharing what they believe their strengths are? No one? All right, well, you don't have to share, but you need to be able to. So when you're in an interview, a lot of times they're going to ask you, what is your biggest strength, or what do you bring to the table? What value do you add? And if you can't answer that confidently, they're not going to have confidence in you either. So make sure that you do practice this one. You really believe and have confidence in yourself, because like, look how far you've come from when you started Lambda to now. I'm sure you've gained many new skill sets that you didn't have before. From your previous experience, you have plenty of wonderful experiences from that and skills that you learned there. So really have confidence in what you bring to the table, because everyone brings something unique and awesome and valuable. So just have that faith and confidence in yourself. And then the next thing is to craft your narrative. And so we won't do this now because you really need to firm up the first sections before you can break into crafting your narrative. But hopefully what we've done today, working through the different skills, interests, and values, hopefully that's a good starting point for you to kind of start writing your pitch and really polishing your presence. So again, your assignment is to submit this to your TL. Are there any other questions tonight, comments, or concerns? Well, it sounds like Nova stopped barking, so that's hopefully she's settling down a little bit. Well, if there are no other questions, we'll end a little bit early tonight, so that's exciting. You can get a jump start on your homework, because I'm sure that's exactly what you're going to do right now. This is supposed to be submitted tonight. No, so I'm sorry that I didn't give a deadline. So this will be submitted. Usually it's the following 2 Thursdays. So 2 Thursdays from now, it will be due. I'll add, when I put this back in the thread with the assignment, I'll add the exact date so there's more clear direction. So thank you for that question. I should have shared that before. Anything else for tonight? All right, well, thank you all for being here and for your great questions and comments and for catching that error on the sheet. So we fixed that. Yeah, thank you all. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the thread or DM me if you want to talk one-on-one. I'm happy to do that as well. So thank you all again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.